Hello and welcome to Real Film Snobs. I'm Brian Michael.
And I'm Angela Yeager. You saw a clip at the top of the show for our first movie this week, which is The Beguiled, directed by Sofia Coppola. And this is about an injured soldier, played by Colin Farrell, who seeks out refuge in an all-female boarding school ran by Nicole Kidman, where the tensions begin to rise among the women as they compete for his attention. The film is set during the Civil War, and it is a remake of a 70s film starring Clint Eastwood in the Colin Farrell role. So unfortunately, I cannot compare it with the original because we have not seen the original. We should have if we'd been...
It is a forgotten film.
I know, but you know, several people have mentioned it when there were reviews of the current one. And so unfortunately, I can't compare it to that. But in the kind of like larger scheme of Sofia Coppola's movies, and I've seen all of her movies to date, this is not one of her greatest films like Lost in Translation or Somewhere, but it's definitely better, a step up from her last film, The Bling Ring. It has a wonderful look to it. It's a very kind of languid, Southern Gothic, kind of hazy feeling, which I really loved. The casting is impeccable. I mean, you really can't go wrong with Nicole Kidman, Kirsten Dunst, Elle Fanning, Colin Farrell, who I think is really well cast. And it's almost sort of hard to imagine Clint Eastwood in this role because it's supposed to be someone. I mean, Clint Eastwood was always a man's man, and Colin Farrell is macho, but he's also got this very kind of sexual, sensual aspect to him, where you could see him being brought into this atmosphere, how he would have this effect on the women. So I did appreciate that. It's not a perfect film. It feels a little bit stunted at the end. It felt like it just sort of ended and left me wanting a little bit more from it. But overall, I can recommend it.
You know, it's a very interesting film, and it does set a fantastic mood. And I love seeing Nicole Kidman, in a really great role.
Again, yeah.
And then Kirsten Dunst, of course, does a fantastic job. Elle Fanning, still after a 20th century woman, I still kind of have a hangover, a little, crush on her still in terms of her performance, and that was so good. So I was really excited to see what she could do with this one, and it's a very interesting role. Colin Farrell, as most people just refer to him as sex on a stick, quite honestly. I thought, if you brought in any kind of man, it'd been an interesting, dynamic when it's made, and to see, what would happen. But it was Colin Farrell. I'm like, well, you have no chance. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, who was there. Everybody finds this man attractive. I don't care if you're the straightest guy on the planet. He is a very good-looking man, and there's always temptation around him. And if it's a room full of, or a house full of women, I'm like, man, I don't think that's a problem for him. I really don't. But I thought it was very interesting, honestly, how they all of a sudden start to dress up a little bit, and they all kind of make the little comments about this and little comments here, and they kind of stab a little bit at one another. And then, something, happens, and I was really disappointed in that because we were kind of led to believe that something else was going to happen, and then that happened, and it was like, oh, dang it. Come on,
well,
but
I
like
twist.
that.
It's a
no,
twist.
I don't mind that. It was just like, I was.
It's not going where you thought it was going to go, which is fine.
And so I thought that was very interesting. And then, things start to happen. You're like, well, how are we going to do this? What are we going to do to take care of? And then a discussion about dinner is made, and a decision is made by a very young child who gives the
in some ways, the character
option.
That's the best character. I mean, she's the most wholesome, wholehearted. She's the one that takes him in and really feels for him and wants to have empathy. She's the one that carries around the turtle, and movie code people. It's the character in a movie that cares for animals or carries around an animal is always the most warm-hearted, giving, sensitive person. And so this is the kid who's really the heart of the movie, and she's the one that kind of makes, the final say in a lot of what happens. So that's very interesting. There has been some criticism of this film. The original and in the book, it is based on a book, had a character who was a slave. It is set during the Civil War, and Sofia Coppola chose to eliminate that character, so there's been some hubbub about that. And I can see both ways. I can see why it would be, it is the Civil War, and there's no mention of race whatsoever. It's totally absent from the film. But I can also see from what she's trying to do in terms of turning this chamber piece about women and men and these dynamics, it would be a little distracting to bring slavery in on top of that.
Yeah, then you're going to have people that are going to criticize you because you didn't pay enough attention to this major issue that's there, and that's what's going to be represented. And then there's also going to be, people will say, why is it every time there's a black actor in a movie they're a slave? There's
always going to be criticism.
That goes back and forth.
And I could see both perspectives. I could also see why Sofia Coppola might have thought that would be distracting. She had this very specific vision she was trying to do. and I can understand that as well. And she is a director who tends to be sparse. She tends to want to remove more than to add. One thing I read that was interesting, I looked up the original just to see the running time. This version, the remake is shorter than the original, which is pretty rare actually. So she pared it down even more, which is pretty impressive. So no, I can definitely recommend it. I think that a lot of people, you know, you have to like her style of filmmaking. She takes her time on shots.
Yes.
She likes, you know, it's a very 70s almost style filmmaking. She takes her time. The shots linger. This is very different from our next movie. We're going to be talking about not quick cutting, fast paced anything. So you have to be in the mood for that. But it's great for summer. You know, it's a great kind of sweaty, you know, kind of summery type of movie.
If you're, you know, if you're new into film, or even if you aren't, you know, there's the auteur theory where it shows, you know, if you look at a person's, you know, work, you can kind of see the similarities. She's only had what, 5-6 movies underneath her belt there, but she's got a very strong and distinct voice. She's got a very strong style, so it really kind of pulls to the surface there. Then when you watch all these, and it's not hard to do, and especially in the day of binge, take a weekend, knock out all our movies, and certainly see this, and then go in and treat yourself into the big theater and seeing this on a big screen. It's a wonderful film. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so you're giving it 3.5? Yeah, same for me. Great. Well, we agree on the first film.
There we
now,
go.
what will we say on the next one?
Oh, boy.
So our next movie is Baby Driver, and we have a clip for you to take a look at. Okay, you saw a clip for Baby Driver, in which a getaway driver named Baby tries to leave a life of crime behind while also wooing a sweet waitress at a diner. And Kevin Spacey stars as the criminal mastermind of the film. Jamie Foxx is on hand as another one of the robbers. Let's see who else. John Hamm is in this film. So we got a big cast. And Ansel, oh boy, I'm gonna mess up his last name. Do you know how to say it?
Nope.
Okay. So the main star, Ansel, we'll call him by his first name because I can say Ansel, who was also in The Fault in Our Stars, who got some buzz for that movie. He stars in this one as well. Now, this movie is getting huge reviews and huge buzz. It's directed by Edgar Wright, who I know is one of your favorite filmmakers. So I went in with a lot of expectations. I, like you, love Shaun of the Dead. I liked Hot Fuzz. The End of the World, or The World's End. I thought was a little bit of a disappointment from those other ones, but it's very funny. I guess what was disappointing about this movie to me is I knew it was an action comedy, but I was hoping there'd be more comedy. It was not as funny as I had hoped, and I know there's been and the soundtrack is phenomenal. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love it. But to me, the way that the film was in sync every single moment with the rhythm almost seemed self-conscious. I felt like it was a little forced at times. There were a few scenes where I was just a little bit like, okay, I get it. He's tapping constantly. He's doing this constantly. And I found it a little distracting. But I'm really curious to hear what you think, because I know you love his films.
Well, you know, years ago, kiddos, there was a film called Cape Fear. And then it was remade by a master called Martin Scorsese. And he did a genre picture. And it was after Goodfellas, and it was before Age of Innocence. And it's a good film. And I enjoyed that film, but when you compare it to the giants that these other films that he has made, it just seems to be a little bit of a lesser film. It doesn't mean it's a bad movie compared to a lot of other people. It might have been their best film, so it just depends on the filmmaker. This is kind of the same thing. This seems more of a genre picture. Now I know that he had been working for 8 years on Ant-Man that came out last year, and he was fired from that. So this one feels, for an Edgar Wright movie, a little rushed, just in terms of, if you've seen all of his other films, including Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, those movies are layered upon layered upon layered. I mean, his films are so incredibly dense, you can just spend all day peeling back. There's usually 2 or 3 commentaries. There's all kinds of video, essays that you can watch. This one just seems a little more one-dimensional. Not in a bad way. It's very enjoyable. I did enjoy the film itself. My problem with it was there wasn't as much, even the first viewing, that like what The World's End or Hot Fuzz, I'm like, I know I got to see it again, and the more I saw it, I found somewhere. This one, I don't necessarily feel that way. And also because of the performances, I like John Hamm. I want to love John Hamm, I really do, but I just
can't get there.
Just not a scary guy. Jamie Foxx is fine. The lead actor, The Fault in His Stars, really, that movie was just so bad, and I just don't see him as a lead actor, someone that I really was kind of rooting for. You know what I mean?
Well, here's one of the issues I found with this movie, and I'm really surprised that so many of the critics are raving and having
Well, compared to the
accolades
other
over it.
summer movies, sure.
Well, yeah, but
This
you
is
have to
well made and
still
crafted.
consider just as a film on itself, not comparing just other summer films, because it has to stand the test of time. And here's one of my issues with it: is the lead actor is pretty vanilla. I just didn't care about him.
That's my biggest
So
issue.
when you can have that in a movie if all the supporting actors are really interesting, really fun, and that's one thing he's done really well in his other movies. And Shaun of the Dead, well, you also have main characters in that film that you really love, but you have all these interesting, quirky, weird side characters, and he's like trying to do that here. He has these archetypes of that, but they're pretty bad. I actually thought a lot of the side characters, not only there was some troubling, racial stereotypes, but even beyond that, like Jamie Foxx was just doing the Jamie Foxx thing, and it was kind of dumb. John Hamm's character I thought was also kind of dumb. His, hot, Latin girlfriend was, it was just none of them were very interesting, and they weren't really that funny. And so Kevin Spacey was pretty good, but other than that, in terms of the supporting roles, the girlfriend isn't very interesting. I was just, where are the interesting characters if you're going to have kind of a straight man, vanilla guy in the center?
Even like Kevin Spacey, plays as a villain. I'm like, well, there you go. That's easy. He's a little neutered here because at one point in time he threatens somebody, but then at the very end he's like, I was in love once, and makes this decision. I'm like, that just didn't seem like that character at all.
Yeah,
the
he
rhythm
turns out to be
thing,
sort of nice or something.
the rhythm thing, I didn't mind so much, but it was an awful lot, and I think that with another viewing, then you could kind of pick it out a little bit more. It was only sometimes like in the gunshots, and it kind of pulled me out. I was like, oh yeah, you're going right along with the rhythm of the song, and that's fine.
And they pulled
It was a cool
attention.
idea, but it just seemed like, to me, it seemed like an exercise in style.
Right. It seemed like a film full of ideas, but to me there wasn't enough nuance or depth, like where I'd want to feel like I could get a lot of out of repeated viewings. And so I guess people seemed really impressed with, the main actor, he was in Dancer at once, and so he was so great at the rhythm and choreography. But that's just an idea to have the actors' movements choreographed. And if it's bringing attention to itself, I mean, they could have done it without, they actually bring it up over and over too. They don't have to bring it up. Like that one time where he's like, wait, don't get out of the car. I have to start the song over. I mean, that's sort of funny.
That was because the song wasn't long enough for this full scene, so they had to play it twice.
Okay.
And so that's
Anyway.
that's kind of cool. But
I was just pretty disappointed. I actually am going to give it 2.5. But
oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I liked it. I give it 3 stars.
If I can't watch it again, then I just can't. And I can't
It's
give it
just
3.
really hard with his previous work. I mean, I've loved those films, and I hope to someday love this one. But I liked it, and I could see in the gluttony of the Hollywood blockbusters that this is something really
Sure,
nice
I'm
and
sure next
refreshing.
to Transformers, it's brilliant, but it has to still stand the test of time.
So is me shaving my head compared to that. So our next movie, well, is it a movie? If it isn't showing in theaters, who knows? Let's take a look at Okja. Okay, so that clip you saw is Joon-ho Bong's newest film, Okja. He's the director of Mother, Snowpiercer, and The Host. Not that host, the other host, the monster movie that made my top 10 list. And Mother made my top 10 list as well. So high expectations here. And Snowpiercer, oh, that's right. Snowpiercer
All of
did
his
as well.
movies have made your top 10.
All of his movies. Oh, dear. Well, let's see if we'll continue with that. This one tells the story of, a young girl who's been given a type of mutated pig. Is what we would call it. Looks more like a hippopotamus to me, but this is an animal that is going to be grown, 26 of them around the world are going to be grown. It's going to cure world hunger, or solve world hunger. And of course, this was put together by a big corporation headed by Tilda Swinton. Whoa. So Tilda Swinton, hey, this is off to a good start. It also stars Jake Gyllenhaal, who's taken some sort of drug or is from some alternate universe. I don't exactly know, but he plays a TV personality who's a little over the top. Just a little bit. Oh my goodness. This film is actually only available on Netflix, hence the French love it so much because it isn't able to play into the theaters. Okay, so here we have another director that I dearly love, and he's made another.
Just like the last one.
Did a different, all of his
Actually,
films.
this should be the auteur episode. Sofia Coppola, Edgar Wright,
That's true.
Joon-ho Bong.
Well, but this one seems more like a family picture. His previous films, not so much.
No.
They're about family, but you don't show the kids. This one you can actually kind of show the kids for the most part. This film.
Well, there is a F-bomb a few times.
Is it? Mm-hmm. Oh. Anyway, so it's an enjoyable film. I like this film. It's a 3-star film. I was a little disappointed on this one because, again, this didn't have the hard themes that his other films had, and some situations where I kind of was like, oh my gosh, there's only one in this that we kind of towards the end thought, uh-oh, and if it's him, you don't know what's going to happen here, and so that was kind of good. But it's just a light heart lighthearted, fun film. I rather enjoyed the special effects were good.
Lighthearted?
The relationship. Well, the relationship with the young girl and the
It's
and the
not
animal.
super
at first.
lighthearted. It does show
Well, it does
the
kinda show
insides
evil.
of factory farming. I mean,
Sure,
it's
now
kind of
that part it gets dark, yes.
Yeah.
But I thought that the first part of it was well, maybe
Yeah.
not the whole family. What 14
the
years
movie
up.
to turn your family members and friends into vegetarians.
That'll
right?
certainly, yeah.
Yeah.
Was
It
that the
will help.
message?
I think
they
that-
didn't hit me over the head
Yeah, I
quite hard
think
enough.
it was pretty during it was, which is actually funny because I read an interview with the director and he actually is not vegetarian, strictly vegetarian, but he is very against factory farming. So he's more into like eating sustainable, small farm, blah blah blah. So that said, back to the movie. It's funny on Baby Driver. I mentioned it was a movie with a lack of substance. It's all style. This is a movie that's all a lot of ideas that could use a little bit more substance as well as maybe a little bit more style. You have some different acting going on here. You have Tilda Swinton and Jake Gyllenhaal who are going way over the top. I mean, Jake in particular is going for the rafters, and Tilda is too. She's doing the thing with the mouth.
No,
and
she always is. She has to have a hunchback, or she's got to
gotta
have a funny teeth.
yeah. She's got to be careful not to become like
something.
the female Johnny Depp with putting some sort of
Hey,
tick.
hey,
Well, I don't know. I'm
hey,
not saying she's going
be
there. I'd say she's got to
nice.
beware to not go there. Jake is going way, way, way over the top. And then the young girl who's actually really, really
She's
good,
very, very good.
who plays Mija, the main character, and she's just doing a very subtle, she's like the most subtle character by far in the film, who has the most to lose, And of course, it's a classic story in a way. If you've seen Old Yeller or any kind of, movie that's about an animal bonding with a child, this really fits in the vein of those kind of movies with the modern twist of the evil corporation and showing you the insides of factory farming, which is atrocious. So,
There's been so many of them, and I'm blanking out completely. Go ahead.
Where the red fern grows, Sounder. Are you thinking
No,
of
but the
this?
corporation ones.
Oh, well, then the evil corporation movies. Oh, well, that's like, every other. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a dark comedy is the way I would put it in that vein.
Sure.
But I enjoyed it. But I feel like from this director where you're expecting, like you said, you're expecting to just be knocked off your feet. It's not quite at that level. It's definitely a 3-star film.
That's a high
It is a
ground
high
for-
bar.
For what
So
he's
he
been
can't
doing,
necessarily
so.
keep that up forever, but it's
He's
still,
already made 3 perfect films, so that, in my eyes. So
yeah,
that's,
so 3 stars,
that's
3
fine
stars for me. Yeah.
to go ahead and make a fun movie. But yeah, it's only available on streaming, and that's why all the controversies about it, because it played at Cannes, and they were mad because now they've changed the rules that you can't submit a film
This
for
movie is the
showing.
one that they changed
Yes.
the rules for, yeah.
It's changed the rules because it has to be put in theaters, or otherwise what's the point? And so the French booed it. They boo everything. Come on.
They do. They boo everything.
They booed so many movies. Come on, give me a break. Okay.
It's fun to boo.
Is it?
I don't know.
Usually they whistle. So our next film, this is a classic from 1926. It's Faust, directed by F.W. Murnau. Another great auteur. If you've ever seen Sunset or Sunrise.
Sunrise.
Sunrise? I always get that
Sunrise?
mixed up. And
Sunset?
then, and then of
now
course
I'm forgetting too.
Nosferatu, and he's a great filmmaker in the silent era, known for special effects for that time, and some amazing storytelling. And this film actually lives up to that. Hey, there we go. We don't have one just getting disappointed. This, of course, tells the story of Faust, who sells, or actually makes a deal with the devil, or Mephisto, actually sides with the devil in order to prosper in life. And we get to see, actually we're a little surprised how long the film went along with that, but we get to see his life through the ups and the downs. And what was very striking about this film was actually the character of Mephisto, who shows up first of all speaking with an angel or with God, whichever it is, with these big, huge black wings, and he's very devilish and very very scary. And several times in this film, he actually was pretty darn spooky. And to watch him kind of coming in and out of the scenes and through the shadows and through smoke, and it's a beautiful looking film.
I know,
in
it was
terms of the
1926 especially. I mean, like Daniel walked through the room when we were watching it, and he was like, "Oh, what is that?" Like when he saw, the devil, the image of the devil. It was quite impressive special effects for the time and for the costuming imagery. It's funny you said. I almost feel like this is the Auteur's Lesser Movies episode because I was a little disappointed. The first half, of the movie, I would give 4 stars to. The second half is more like a 2-star movie, so I guess I'll even it out and give it 3 stars. But it went a little too long, and
it's a little long,
and it veers way off track the second half into this whole love story thing with Mephisto with Faust and the girl, and it kind of loses. Like I really loved the beginning when they had the plague-ridden city and the devil's like up to all these tricks, and then the second half they kind of lose a lot of that, and he's just kind of pining for this girl, and it gets too much into the love story and loses kind of the horror aspect, which I really liked. So
even the films from 1926 are too long for you. You want to nail it.
But it's not long. It's just that I felt I wanted it to go more in that.
Your attention span is shrinking.
No,
it's like 96 minutes, and that's it.
No, you mentioned it. We were watching it together, and several times you were like, "Where?" Yeah, it wasn't just that it was slow. It was like I wasn't as interested in what was going on. I didn't really care about those characters.
Once the bet was set up, and he does give in to him and says, "Yeah, I'll believe in what you're doing." And then they think, "Okay, the bet is won," and it actually continues on with his life. So it's a little long towards the end, but it's still a beautiful looking film. It's definitely one to certainly look at, and it's another great film in his repertoire.
Yeah, it's a good one to look for sure. Beautiful look. I mean, if you think things just keep getting better and better, I don't know. 1926 looking pretty good, I would say. So we'll move on to the next segment, which is her fresh picks. These are movies that came out in 2017 that we might have missed in the theater, that were critically acclaimed, that we're now reviewing on the show. And this one is A Monster Calls, directed by J.A. Bayonne, and it's about a boy who seeks the help of a tree monster in order to cope with his mother's illness. And this J.A. Bayonne did The Orphanage, which is a great film that also stars child actors, much scarier than this one. Despite the title, this is actually not a very scary movie. This is actually sort of in the vein of the BFG, in my opinion, in that it's about a young English child who's kind of seeking to escape from his present reality. In this case, his mother being sick, and he lives alone with her, so he really has no one else to reach out to. And he starts talking to this tree monster, and the tree monster tells him stories that are kind of supposed to help him learn from life. And I think it's a good movie. It's not a great movie. I enjoyed aspects of it. The tree monster looks a lot like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. That was a little distracting to me at times. The little boy is well cast. I thought he was good. What is the name of the actress who plays his mother? Felicity.
Yep.
Yes, you know who I'm talking about.
Sure.
Her. Yeah. She plays the mother, and she's very good. And Sigourney Weaver plays his mean grandmother, who's actually not that mean. She's just also going through a hard time herself, and her and the boy are different, and they don't, they kind of rub each other the wrong way. So, it's a good, it's a good family movie, which you don't see a lot of family movies made like this anymore that aren't like, Minions and crazy. They're just like good traditional family.
Annoying is the word you're looking for.
I was trying to think of a different word.
Not for everybody. Oh, let's watch another movie with some minions in it, please. Felicity Jones? Is that right?
Felicity Jones. I think that's right. No, I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
And then I want to say Felicity Huffman, but that's not
is
totally.
Is it Felicity Jones? Perfect. That's what I'm
It is Felicity Jones.
That's what I'm being told? That's what they're saying.
Yeah, he's pretending.
I was really excited about this film, and it had a really great buzz. It came out, at the end of the year. I don't know if it was trying to contend for awards or if it was just trying to fill in a niche for some family films, because it was. What was this last summer? What was the last Christmas's big hit? I don't remember. Was it a Star Wars movie? I don't remember. Yeah, I think it was. Anyway, and it just kind of went under the radar. And usually, I unfortunately know the box office. I was like, oh, I think it did like 30 or 60. It did 3. I was like, oh dear, no one saw this movie. And it's a good film. I liked it.
So you had the same reaction.
But I really, I've kind of seen the story done before and in this way. But
I think that's part of the issue is you feel like, oh, I've sort of seen this movie before. It doesn't feel super original.
It was original, but I did care for the characters. I did care about what they were doing. And there's a nice reveal there at the end, which seems to be something I say every week now. But there was a nice little reveal there about the history of that tree that was really touching and very sweet and really well done. And it's voiced by Liam Neeson. That's pretty easy to do there. The other you've got Vin Diesel or Liam Neeson. How many times do they get mentioned in the same? Right there, huh?
Yeah.
But my favorite part about watching this movie, dear viewers, is when Angela turns to you and goes, "He reminds me of Groot. Wasn't Groot a tree?" Like, yeah. Groot was a tree, Angela.
Why is that?
Fortunately,
your
I wasn't
part?
wearing the T-shirt or something. I'm like, yes, see, you could do. No,
Well,
it's almost like a common. My mother knows Groot's a tree. I mean, it's just kind of. It was everywhere. Anyway.
I knew it. I was just saying, I just wanted you to
you asked
affirm
as in
that I
like,
was correct.
Right?
Right. Well, you know, they have a bunch of characters in that movie. I don't know. I've only
One
seen
of them was
Guardians.
green,
I've seen
right? Or
Guardians.
was that Avengers?
I've seen
What's
Guardians
both?
one time. They'll probably be the only time I ever see it. So it's like, what are you gonna do? Okay, so to wrap up, can I wrap up now?
Please.
You're like, please, for the love of God, stop this. Okay, so The Beguiled sounds like is our big pick this week. Sofia Coppola's The Beguiled. Seek it out. It's a great film. You know, definitely not a fast-paced summer movie, but for the film snobs out there, you'll appreciate it.
Yeah.
Baby Driver, Brian can barely recommend. I cannot recommend it. I wish I could.
Wow.
I think I had high hopes. I was pretty disappointed. Faust, you know, I mildly recommend. I think, did you give it?
Yeah,
3.5. 3.5 for you. Oh, Okja, we both recommend mildly, and A Monster Calls, mild recommendations. No 4-star movies this episode.
Some weird family movies and independent
It's a good
films.
mix, though.
It's
Good
a nice
mix of
little
stuff. Yeah. So, as always, you can check us out on our website at realfilmsnobs.com. You can follow us on. Boy, I'm having a hard time today. Follow us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. You can listen to us on KMUZ, and you can watch us on YouTube. As always, I'd like to thank our fantastic crew, our wonderful sponsors for their support. Have a great day and great movies.